The Square Ball Podcast.
Welcome to the show that's brought to you with Levi Solicitors. 10% discount on your legal fees. levisolicitors.co.uk/the Square Ball. Dan, Michael, Moscow with you on the weekly show number 258. Quick heads up that you can get a 1-month trial on TSB Plus, our all-in subscription package that's available on the website right now. Have a look at thesquareball.net/plus. Means you can get these podcasts ad-free, priority access to the match ball after the games, daily email from Moscow as well with all the essential Leeds United news, discounts on merch, all sorts of stuff in there. Have a look at that. Thesquareball.net/plus. Right into it then. Part one is where we have a look at the latest Leeds United news. We're in January now, so the window is open. It's exciting. Any news, Phil, etc., etc., etc. Phil has brought us news today, among other people. We are signing, we are finalising as we speak. He's at Thorpe Arch, running around the track probably. Mateo Joseph Fernandez from Espanyol.
Is he a highly rated central midfielder who's played 200 games?
He's a highly rated 18-year-old forward who will go into the academy, Michael.
Oh, well.
And that's all you're getting for now. Mind you, Angus told us in the programme notes, you know, we need to meet Bielsa's high exacting standards if we're going to sign anybody in this window, but the backing is always there. Should he have said that, by the way? Was it worth it? Easy to say nothing? What do you think?
You're damned if you do, damned if you don't. If you said nothing and people said, why didn't you say anything? If you said, we're spending loads of money, people said, why are you alerting other clubs to how much shopping I'm going to do? And then when he said, you know, it will be difficult, which he basically said exactly as Marcelo Bielsa has been saying all season, then he just gets, well, why aren't we signing anybody? So maybe just, I mean, when he skipped having programme notes the other week, that was good. So maybe just, if it's that much of a problem, just don't say anything at all. But, you know, it's just space filler, isn't it? Not like anybody reads the programme when there's the Square Ball for sale outside the ground at the same time for a mere £2.50.
One of your big bugbears, if you are a TSB Plus subscriber, you get the daily email, it's called Propaganda, is you don't like Port Vale because they wrongfully stole Leeds City's place in the football pyramids some time ago.
Yeah, no Leeds United fan should. No Leeds person should. Neil Aspin is maybe allowed. There have been a few exceptions over the years where you...
Defectors from like North Korea to South Korea kind of vibes.
Well, yeah, people go over the border and maybe try to spread the good message. They try to
Michael Brown.
do something. He is not one of
Danny
them.
Pugh.
That just further cemented their descent down the staircase into hell. But yeah, 1919, Leeds City, almost unquestionably innocent of everything that they were accused of. But regardless of that, one of the main reasons why Leeds City got thrown out of the league was not the repercussions of what they certainly did not do, or did, but that Port Vale were lobbying all the other members of the Football League, going, if you get them out,
This is the same.
you get us in.
To draw like a modern parallel, it's like someone being stood at the front of a full nightclub, the queue outside, encouraging the bouncers to throw somebody out.
Yeah, basically. And it was all, you know, there's a big financial promises because they used to share ticket revenue, and
The transfer section of the podcast.
Yeah.
The way that ticket revenue would be shared meant that you would lose money playing against certain teams because they had smaller crowds than you. So Port Vale had that, you know, leverage of going around saying, we've got a massive stadium, it's going to be the Wembley of the North. They always claim that
They're not in the North, are they?
The Wembley of the North. And they're not even in the North.
No.
Wembley of some fucking ceramics factory. And that was a big factor in why Leeds City were then thrown out. And then who did we play as soon as we're back in the Football League ourselves as a new club that we had to form? Leeds United, Port Vale. And I feel like the rivalry has been left, has been not been sustained over the years the way it should.
Yeah.
And I don't think this is necessarily helpful because I quite like Ryan Edmondson, and he's gone there.
This is one hell of a long run up just to say that Ryan Edmondson's gone on loan to Port Vale.
A striker who will never play for Leeds again.
Well, you never know, unless he might have a hot streak. They're going for promotion from League Two. They're sixth, and he'd better not help them. But I don't know whether he will get much help himself because he's not on the staff list at the moment. But from what my spies in the Potteries tell me, Billy Painter is a coach at
if there's one man
I've just seen who their manager is.
Mm-hmm. Darnell Clark from. No, it's Darryl Clark, isn't it?
Yes.
I'm thinking of August Darnell from Kid Creole and the Coconuts.
I knew it'd be an obscure funk band.
Yeah, it's not them. It's Darryl Clark, who was at one point Cellino's preferred man, wasn't he?
Yeah, the best decision he made was. Well, at the time, you look back and think the best decision he could have made is turning Leeds United down. But then to go and accept Port Vale just suggests that he's part of this century-long conspiracy of hate.
Which is exactly what it is.
First team coach, of course, is Huddersfield legend Dean Whitehead. That just further compounds the anti-Leeds sentiment at that club. And I just hope... Ryan at Fleetwood scored 2 goals in 17 games, both in the Papa John's. So it's not been a great period for him there, but I can't wish him well at Port Vale. I hope it's not a goal fest. I hope he just cuts the loan short. Maybe being there a week will be enough for him to realise it's all been a big mistake, and we'll take him back and send him somewhere else.
Port Vale's website, to their credit, does list the laundry manager on the staff, which is quite nice.
And yet not Billy Painter, whose Wikipedia page does still say he works there, but I can't find out what he does.
Levels of shame to this game. What do you think about Sam Greenwood maybe going out on loan then, in terms of another young forward, possibly going to Swansea or Forest? They're both rumoured to be in for him. Are we seeing like a change in Bielsa's policy potentially here of sending young players out to go get some air miles?
No, I think we're seeing a rehash of last year's rumours because he was linked to Swansea last year.
Right.
I think it's just the same.
Well, the Swansea's manager, the terrifying bloke Cooper, he's gone to Forest, hasn't he? So that's probably it's rehashing the link for him and Swansea. I think is probably what's come about. I mean, I think there is some genuine interest there. It does seem to have been talked about, and Cooper is one of those managers who does like getting young players. I mean, he got Brewster on loan from Liverpool, and then they hilariously sold him for £24 million or whatever to Sheffield United. So maybe we should do that. Just sell Greenwood for £24 million in summer.
I might be fine with that if I wanted to sell him for £24 million.
Cody Drama has been linked to a loan to Forest as well, but it doesn't. It would have to be. It's not just a big change in policy towards the young players, but it's a change towards the first team squad as well, because you can't really say that our squad is deep enough that we might not need Sam Greenwood. And I know clubs are now frantically cancelling loans all over the shop because of the COVID thing and trying to get games played and stuff. But I don't think that's ever really a recall clauses are not the ideal scenario for anybody. And Bielsa always says it's about if he thinks a player is good enough to be contributing to our first team, then they stay. If he doesn't, then they can go out on loan. And I think Greenwood is still close enough to our first team that he would not want to let him go. I mean, there's a small squad, and then there's letting the players you actually need go out on loan for no reason, isn't there?
But there's also the question of if we look to bring somebody in the other side, in the indoor, and then he can maybe have a loan, and because you do get that sense that there is that kind of that no man's land before they defect from North Korea to South Korea, where they need to go get some air miles, don't they? Some football under the belts. Otherwise, they kind of just hover, playing murder ball and sitting on the bench at Leeds and not really doing much.
But it's a question of whether murder ball is a better option than being coached by Billy Painter at Port Vale and the training you get. And I was just looking at Phil Foden never got loaned anywhere.
You make it sound like Ryan Edmondson might have begged to stay, and they've gone no.
Well, no, that's
Port for you.
Well, Ryan Edmondson is obviously out of the picture, and we don't think he's going to be breaking into the team under Bielsa. Maybe when we're relegated at the end of the season and Heckingbottom comes back, and then he'll have a chance then. But he's out of the picture. But because Sam Greenwood is seen as a viable option by Bielsa, and he's somebody who he thinks can be good enough for our first team, his point of view, and I don't think it's necessarily a bad one, is that he benefits more from being trained and playing murder ball and playing in our under 23s than he does playing League One for Darryl Clark and Billy Painter. And the experience side of it, I think, is accurate. You wonder when these players are going to get the league experience, and you're kind of seeing the downside of that maybe with the state of Tyler Roberts now, where that one of the thoughts I had about him missing that header was when have we ever seen him go for a header like that? Like, when was the last time he actually...
Hull.
Well, that was a very different one. That was the Van Persie dive, wasn't it? But when was the last time he actually was in that situation in a match? Whereas if he played, instead of having his leg infected for 2 years, he'd been either playing in our under-23s or on loan for getting 60, 70 games under his belt for a couple of seasons. He might have had more muscle memory, and that ball just goes flying in. But then, yes, I just looked up Phil Foden, who I think he's quite good, and how he's been managed at Manchester City was always a big question as well, of like, why isn't he getting any games? Why isn't he going out on loan? Why isn't Pep using this outrageous talent? And he's so over the seasons 0, 5, 13, 23, 28, 13 appearances to the age of 21, so building him up
Are
gradually.
you saying Greenwood is going to be as good as Phil Foden? That sounds like it to me.
I'm a fan.
But I am saying that it is possible to get a player ready for the Premier League without loaning them to some post-industrial northwest nuclear wasteland, as we've done with a lot of the kids who we don't think are going to
Barrow there,
make it. Well, they've all gone there, haven't they?
Yeah,
Barrow, Fleetwood, Morecambe. It's been I don't know, trying to keep them all together.
On the injuries front, by the way,
support
on Roberts, do we know what's wrong with him yet? Was it his calf that he pulled?
It looked that way, yeah. But
I guess we'll find out from Bielsa's presser this week.
That's true.
But it looked a
detailed injury report.
Yeah, another strange injury, no doubt. I've never seen anything like it.
It does feel like hopefully that we're over the worst of the injuries now, because what we've got, Strauch and Rodrigo just need a bit of a rest for their...
Just shut your filthy mouth. Why even...
It feels like it. Doesn't mean we are. I'm not jinxing it.
It felt like that when Bamford came back, scored, and then immediately injured himself again celebrating, and just...
Which we might look back on and laugh at one day, but not right now.
I mean, it was funny at the time.
He's nearly back. Bamford said to be close. He could have been available for Burnley, but obviously they've chosen not to risk him. And with Joffy ripping things up and looking really, really exciting, then there's another option there, isn't there? But I was going to say Strike and Rodrigo, they just need rest, the pair of them, by the sounds of it, don't they? And they might get it.
Not enough rest.
Because they've got...
I've been playing. What have they been doing?
The cup game this week, which we'll come on to. Shax, is he February?
They sort of have hinted at it. Yeah. I mean, if Ayling's fit, it doesn't matter all that much, does it, for Shackleton? He's going to be a bench option.
Matters for Shackleton, but not for us.
Yeah, exactly.
He's another one who needs some actual games.
Yeah, Calvin and Cooper are both confirmed as fairly long term into March
before a full return.
Why did nobody ask beginning of March or end of March?
Quite a difference.
Yeah, but even on the press conference when because Bielsa did his little roundup of injuries at the start, didn't mention this, and then later on he threw it in without being asked. He was like, "Oh, and of course they'll be out until March." And Phil Hay, our very good friend, did then say, "Can I just confirm? Is March a worst case scenario? Is that when you expect them back?" And Bielsa said, "That's when we expect them back." But he didn't ask first or third. It's a long month as well. It's not one of your 28 days.
And is that back from starting training, or is that back in the first team fold?
And that detail was there to be had.
Do your job, Phil Hay.
Well, he was saying, Bielsa was saying...
having to work with these bloody amateurs.
I think he said about Shackleton that it would be end of February. So he's offering those little further bits of information because it's a big difference. I was quite relaxed about them not being back until when we had the first... details when they first went out, and it was a matter of weeks, and you could count them back and say, right, they're going to be back first week of February around the Aston Villa game, so that's when we can expect them back, and that's okay because January is only West Ham and Newcastle once Burnley were out of the way. Now I don't know what's happening. I've just no clue. I don't even know how have we got any games in February.
We don't need anybody anyway, do we? Because everyone beneath us is rubbish, so we're fine with staying up, as we proved on Sunday by beating Burnley.
We don't need any new midfielders because the midfield... I'm doing my Thomas Christian thing again. Midfield, you like? Everybody says we need a midfield. There's a midfield.
Seriously, though, do you feel like a lot more relaxed about how bad the Premier League is? Like having beaten Burnley? Because have you seen all the results like that have happened underneath us? There was that stat that somebody pulled that was, which I might have mentioned on the match ball, or maybe even off air, I don't know. But of all the 20 games or 20 odd games that have been played by teams beneath us, not a single one has won a game apart from when Newcastle beat Burnley. So it was a match between two of the sides that were down there. Awful, isn't it?
The little break we've had with COVID has been nice because we've got to have a rest, and then when other people have played, they've lost. So it's the table's just looked absolutely fine as a result of it, and it's meant we've got players back. But yeah, it's kind of reassuring that there's not an awful lot of life down there.
As we were discussing on propaganda, actually, we were making a joke, Moscow, about like Brighton needing the regulation 9 wins per season. It's about all you need, isn't it? And it's not a great deal. You just got to win roughly a quarter of your games and you're fine to stay up.
There's not even a lot of life anywhere, and I think with it being a squat division with only 20 teams in it, that means it's you don't get that buffer that you'd get in the Championship. I mean, you're talking about Everton getting dragged into the potentially the relegation battle when really they're mid-table, but mid-table doesn't really exist. Stephen York, who writes for us, tweeted this morning to point out that Leeds are the same distance to scum as scum are to Chelsea, and that Norwich are closer to scum than scum are to Manchester City. And I don't know, I can't really sort of visualise the maths behind all that and exactly what it means, but the feeling I've had about the Premier League this season, and Bielsa kind of mentioned it when he said that everybody's running less, I don't think it's a very good year.
I mean, it's a very good year for Man City.
Man City
they're clearly
they started a little bit dicey, but then have sorted it out. But there's not really
It's true, you're right, because like Chelsea having a little wobble, Liverpool have had a little wobble. Apart from Man City, who are just running away with it, everyone's sort of indifferent, taking points off one another. Spurs are on a bit of an upward curve at the minute. West Ham are generally all right, but beyond that, everyone's fairly just like crap or inconsistent, aren't they?
Yeah, it's not like, it doesn't feel like a classic league at this state. It's not like one that you'll look back on and go, oh, that was a really good season. If Barclays is what you're supposed to call it, isn't it?
No, that's annoying. Sorry to be a grumpy old fart.
Carling, all right.
Whatever.
But yeah, so there's that, and maybe it all is, I'm sure it will be much better next season after a short summer when we cram a World Cup into the middle of it.
Well, the World Cup's next December, isn't it?
That's what I mean.
Not the summer, yeah.
So, but the
summer
is being shortened already to accommodate it. So we're starting early and then knocking off, and then they just go and play that.
But it's funny thinking, like, I think everyone feels like we'll be in a much better position, assuming we survive this season, to get into next year, where you can sort of count on that, you comfortably getting your 10 to 12 wins. That's going to make everything a little bit more relaxed going through the full season. Because I'm looking at like the Championship, the top end of the Championship table, and there's not a right lot doing that. I mean, like, the teams that are looking to come back up, if Bournemouth come back up, are they going to come up and then suddenly rip it up? If Blackburn do make it up, do you expect them to do anything but struggle? Then you've got,
sorry Tony,
beneath that you've got Fulham, West Brom, QPR, Huddersfield. You can't imagine any of them making massive inroads, can you?
No, so as long as there's always 3 teams at the bottom that are going down, and
that will always be the case, I think.
And you can look at
definitely
some of the potential escapees this season. Like, you don't see Watford, if they manage to stay up, you don't think next season is suddenly going to be a threat to the top 6. Everton are just going to keep bothering the relegation place. So I think as long as there's always like a bottom 3 and Everton.
Yeah. Brentford will inevitably drop out at some point as well.
Yeah, so there's enough down there, and that's why staying up this season is just does change.
And what we know,
atmosphere.
And what we know now as well is that we dismissed second season syndrome because we did quite well last season. We went, that's not a thing. I think we'd all fairly much admit that it can be a thing, that you get. It's felt a little bit more joyless, I think, this season. It's not been as much fun because
we haven't won as many.
Well, yeah, we haven't won as many. The reality is the practicalities have been in the Premier League sort of bedding a little bit, and that's what's going to happen to Brentford next year, and we all know it now.
Although
they're not aware of it. Yeah, they're still enjoying it. They're in the honeymoon period.
One thing that did occur to me, the way the goals were celebrated on Sunday and the way every goal has been celebrated this season, it does seem to matter a lot this year. And those goals, I'm really enjoying every goal. There's not one way, just, the fourth in a 4-0, which you think would be nice. And it's not, I don't know what's causing it necessarily, because we haven't got that real backs against the wall relegation battle. We haven't got we're not going for a title or a cup. It's really just a strain to get into mid-table, and it seems to be born of. I
think it's relegation, surely.
Well,
I think we've been in a relegation battle and still are,
but not in a bottom of the table, trying to scramble our way up every half a point we can get on the board matters. And I think it's more from it's being generated quite positively, where you can see why the team is struggling, the injuries, you can see why everything's going against them. You can see that good players like Stuart Dallas, Luke Ayling, Matches Click, apart from the pests on Twitter, are having a hard time for whatever reason, and everybody loves Bielsa, so they're being supported, and that's expressing itself in goals where you're like, when Stuart Dallas scores on his 250th appearance, everybody's really happy that it's happening.
Not just that, I thought there was a real outpouring for the first one against Burnley on Sunday.
Yeah, so that's what I mean.
Proper, like, everyone
every single goal.
Everyone knew we needed to win that on Sunday, and I think the release for that, even for that one.
But there's not been a game unlike that. I think every goal that I've experienced, I mean, even the Bamford against Brentford that I was sitting watching in my COVID haze, looked like a lot of fun, and Pat Bamford enjoyed it until he didn't, so I still think it's hilarious. It's just one of the, I mean, that's the kind of the Leedsiest, hilarious nonsense that only happens to us and seems to be happening a lot this season, but still kind of funny.
Did you note over the weekend that you're now able to stand at football again?
That's amazing, isn't it? I've sat down for all these years.
Yeah.
Every game in the Cop, every away game I've ever been to, always sat down.
Because Chelsea v Liverpool, they introduced proper, acceptable, allowed safe standing, didn't they?
They did. I mean, it's been coming for a while, hasn't it? And I think we're all in favour.
I mean, given that as you were just making the joke, then everyone stands up anyway.
Yeah, I mean,
not all throughout the ground. You want to have the option of seats, obviously, but I'm saying, but like, by and large, everyone stands up, like behind the goal, south stand, southeast corner, whatever. The singing sections.
If you stand at the back of the West Stand, you can't see. the gantry actually blocks your view.
Sorry. The gantry gone. Of course,
that quickly.
I'll just move it close to the mic so we can hear it.
There we go.
I was going to say, people are standing anyway, so it just makes sense logically to make it a thing you can do without breaking the law.
Is the reason you want it so you can find it easier to throw missiles, engage in hate chanting, racism, sneak alcohol in, and take cocaine? Is that why you want to do it? Is that why you support it?
To be honest, the seat that I sit in, it's the only thing that's preventing me freebasing heroin.
This was Dan James running away with his stiff left arm celebration, wasn't it?
I mean, I'm normally, just racking up lines on the seat in front, but I can't do that. It's going to disturb the person in front of me, so I better not do that today. So it's the only thing stopping me,
Because I've got
Inject safe standing straight into my veins.
Because I've got a nice bald head, I just let people snort coke off the top of that.
Yeah.
It's just nice. It's a little benefit for the people who stand behind me.
This needs context of the Cheshire Police Chief Constable Mark Roberts, who doesn't seem to be in favour of safe standing, and is expressing this by making it sound really appealing to probably quite a large section of English football supporters, where if crowds are stood up, it's easier to throw missiles, engage in hate chanting, racism, to sneak alcohol in and take cocaine. I mean, a lot of people, unfortunately, will look at that and go, yes, if that's all going to be easier, because it's quite difficult.
When I engage in my hate chant in Moscow...
is it difficult when you're sitting?
Yeah, my voice doesn't work as well.
But it probably is easy to throw things when you stood up.
Yeah,
but people stand up to throw things anyway. That's why they always get picked out on the CCTV.
Do you tend to stand up for your hate chanting and racism, or do you stay seated?
It's why I have to stay sitting down so I don't do it.
I guess in the West Stand,
stopping me.
In the West Stand, it's all seated, isn't it?
But it is true though. If you are trying to sneak alcohol in, you could tuck like a hip flask or something into your sock, and you could run a straw all the way up your inside leg, through your groin, up your inside of your clothes and like get a little straw by your mouth like that, and just suck on your drink.
How is it easier to sneak alcohol in? Just because when you get in, you're standing up.
But if you sit down, it's going to put a kink in the line, isn't it? And it's not going to be able to come through. But
he's not talking about it's easier to drink in the stand. He's talking about it's easier to sneak the alcohol in, as if all the security staff and sniffer dogs will just be irrelevant now, because once you pass them, you can stand. Well,
I sneak my booze and drugs in, but I go through the turnstile in a seated position. That's how I managed to get it in.
This is it. That's a big secret. If it will, standing on an open terrace make people more likely to take cocaine than at the moment you have to go into a toilet to do it, or do it in a concourse, or do it.
You've got a barrier in front of you, haven't you?
Sitting down would be easier though, wouldn't it? Because you duck down behind somebody.
I've heard that they're installing square barriers, so you've got a nice flat surface to rack your line upon if you wanted. That's what they're doing.
Snorting it off the rail seats. Is that the idea? Which is a question. Where are our rail seats? Because Angus told us they were going to be from the back of the Kop moving forward from the start of the season, and now Chelsea, everybody's
maybe it's just been
Chelsea. Everybody's standing up, hate chanting, drinking, and taking drugs, and we're all sitting down. So
maybe.
Where are our drug chairs? Maybe
just delayed. They didn't put the drug chairs in because they were delayed because of COVID or whatever. Because it's like the West Stand restrictions, for example. The red zone meant that we didn't get the new dugouts yet and stuff because it's just everything's been delayed by bloody COVID.
The dugouts that are there is an absolute golden surface for snorting drugs off, isn't it? So that needs fixing. And nobody tell Cheshire Police Chief Constable Mark about that. He'll be livid if he sees.
And this line as well. I mean, I know we're being really glib about this, but
he's being an idiot.
He's saying it, and also in many of the modern stadiums, the bowls, you can actually migrate all the way around the stadium. So the concern is that they get overloaded and you can get crushing issues. That's not true. So all right then, Chief Constable Mark Roberts, why don't you put some fences in between and see what happens again there, idiot?
I mean, I've not been to.
But there are barriers between sections, for Christ's sake. You can't get from one part of the stadium to another.
Is he talking about concourses, though? Because I've not been to Spurs new.
Well, he must be specific.
Like Can you walk around them all?
He must be
specifically
talking about above ground, because he's talking about safe standing versus seated. So that's just not. It's just not true, is it?
And it wouldn't change. Just you can have crowding in a seated area if 10,000 people who shouldn't be in one section all decide to go to that section, whether it's rail seats or seats. Isn't going to make a right lot of difference. You've just got a load of people in the wrong place. So it's not the furniture. There's a table over there. Let's all go and look at it.
I know Bayern Munich are our bête noire, but when I went there the other 2 years ago now, just in the before times, pre-COVID, and we went to a game there, and it is actually genuinely like that. In the concourse, you can walk around the entire stadium underneath, and you could go in anywhere. People didn't, because people are sensible. They want to go where their allocated seat is there or thereabouts.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of this goes back to Hillsborough, doesn't it? And the crowd control problems at Hillsborough were down to the police, and the fact that even having opened gates and had the opportunity to divert people into side pens, the way Hillsborough was set out and the way they dealt with the crowd pushed everyone into
the
middle.
Pen, yeah.
And that is what went wrong. At a logically organised stadium, people will act in a more logical way, and you won't get that, because people will see that you arrive at lots of turnstiles, you go in, there are signs, there are lots of different entrances into a ground.
It's almost like we had the Taylor report, 30 years ago, that pointed all this out, and stadiums have changed since then. A lot can happen in 30 years.
Still hasn't, actually, in truth. When you go in there, it's kind of a bit eerie because you know what it's like, but you can actually see, even though there are changes, you can kind of see how it would have happened weirdly, because of the way that is arranged. But yeah, if it's done in a proper way, I don't see any reason not to.
And the modern stadiums, they may well have this ability to migrate from section to section, but they also have the kind of space and scale that Hillsborough never had. So the chances of crushing developing, and I assume because he's talking about rail seating and safe standing, that he must be talking about on the terraces. But there's surely Spurs, you just go on the pitch now. It's not something that's going to happen again in the same way that he seems to be implying. And also, you're right to highlight the role of the police, because all of the things he's talking about here are within his control as Cheshire Police Chief Constable Mark Roberts. So if they happen at Chester, Macclesfield, Wrexham, so I don't even know why we're listening to this. Stockport is probably the biggest stadium this guy has ever seen. Port Vale would be a dream to him.
There's actually
but all of these things is like police powers will not be removed because rail seating goes in if there are crushes occurring or just a drug farm developing. Then you can go and do something about it as the police. Oh no, they've got rail seating over there. It's like kryptonite. We can't do a thing since they put that there. It's a force field. Ooh.
I was going to say, actually, you mentioned Chester there as part of his jurisdiction, and we were talking about this. We were talking about this in the car, weren't we, the other day? When I was giving you a lift home, Moscow. That I can't remember how we got onto Chester City, but the club offices are at the back of the main stand, which is in England. But the rest of the stadium, like basically the front of the stand, and then the rest of the stadium, the other three stands, are in Wales.
Well, that's ideal because you'll need passports to get from one bit of the ground to the other. So that'd be perfect for him.
Yeah. So
the thing about overcrowding areas as well. Like Leeds away, some people do go in the seats, but there's generally a bit of a free-for-all atmosphere with where you sit. Because of what he was saying, people want to sit with their mates, and because of the ticket application process and stuff, people end up like spread all over the place. So actually you generally get in, you're like, oh, we're like at the back right corner or whatever, and people congregate. But it's fine. Like people just find space, and then you go where there's space.
That's it, because there is enough space. Because the problem with Hillsborough was with the fences and the cages.
Crowds are self-regulating until you put fences in to stop them being self-regulating.
Like Dortmund as well. That again, a massive big open terrace. That's not even rail seats. That's actual proper terrace. Again, it's fine, because people go, I could go where it's really busy, or when I can't see, or I could go and find a little bit of space somewhere.
Do you think he just doesn't want to bother doing his job?
You do get the sense with the police, with the police a lot recently, don't you? It's like, oh God, is this us again having to do this? Christ, what a pain in the arse.
That wraps up part 1 of the weekly show. Then hang about then for part 2. We've got the first West Ham preview that's going to be coming in the next couple of weeks, and we'll pick heroes and villains.
The Square Ball Podcast.